guys, my name is Adara and I'm a 5th year senior at UNI. Like I mentioned in my other video, the topic of race has become very important to me as I've grown up as a Latina in the United States. However, I did want to reiterate from the last video that no one owns the conversation about race. We should all be talking about race and embracing races. So it doesn't matter who you are or where you came from, you are all able to lead conversations about race. So with that being said, you guys will all have access to a folder that has some attachments that I've put together about the topic of being not racist versus being anti-racist. I think that for many of your guys' audiences, this is an excellent introductory topic that anyone can understand and learn about. So I wanted to make a short video to better explain the concepts so you guys are able to reteach the topic when you're having your conversations about race and feel a little bit more confident about the. So the topic of being an anti-racist comes from Ibram X. Kendi's book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. Essentially, the idea comes down to the fact that there's a huge difference between being not racist and being anti-racist. Not being racist is easy. It means that you don't openly discriminate because you don't want to be racist. So what does it mean to be anti-racist? Anti-racism is constantly working towards equality, and that can be done through many different ways and means a lot of different things. To truly be an anti-racist, there's a sense of confession, and you have to be willing to admit that you have made mistakes in the past, and you may continue to make them on accident. You have to be adaptable and know that you can always learn more. In addition to this, being an anti-racist requires continuous action and support. Another important part of being anti-racist is not only accepting people for being different from you, but embracing them for being different. A sense of unity does not come from everyone being the same. Unity comes from the ability to come together because we embrace that each other has their own path and their own important features that may be different from your own. Kendi, in his book, says the only way to undo racism is to consistently identify and describe it, and then dismantle it. So one of the parts about Kendi's book that I really appreciate is that he starts chapters off by putting important definitions to help explain what he's talking about. For example, he defines race as a power construct of collected or merged difference that lives socially. So to understand what racism is and how to combat it, you obviously need to know what race is. And to Kendi, that is the base for being an anti-racist. You must be able to recognize race and recognize racism. And in addition to this, we can dive deeper into the concept of race based on this idea. So according to Kendi, race has nothing to do with the biology or ethnic identification of a person or group. Ultimately, race comes down to the power dynamic. With that being said, race is not about phenotypes or culture. Race is about the power. So this is the foundation of understanding what it means to be an anti-racist because we learn to identify racism through the power disparities that it creates. Through those disparities, we are able to understand where real inequality exists. And based on that, this is where the problem of not being racist comes in. Being not racist is passive, which means that active fighting for equality simply isn't there. The heartbeat of racism is that passiveness. Not racist is not good enough. And we know that because we have not achieved societal equality for all people. So being not racist has allowed unequal policies to continue to exist, along with underlying inequalities that are not always easy to recognize. So how do we recognize racism? How can I tell where power disparities exist? Honestly, this is the really hard part. This is where you have to look within yourself and question the policies that make up your own life. You listen to the way that people speak and recognize discrimination when you hear it. Much of understanding racism and where it lingers today comes from education and challenging your values. A prime example of a not racist claim is, I don't see color. I'm even sure that I have said something along the lines of this before, but even this statement contributes to the power dynamic of race. By saying that you don't see color, that means that you don't see and choose to ignore someone's entire way of life. By not seeing their color, you don't see their ethnic meals that they make, or their religious rituals, or even the way that they speak. This is a really naive claim to make, and it forces people of color to want to be like white people in order to be seen, because who they are isn't being seen. Like I said, this is even something that I had to learn, and I had to challenge my own views. And it's very okay to admit that you have changed and learned and you really want to be better. So this was an incredibly short introduction to the topic of how to be an anti-racist. If I were to sum it up, I would say that being not racist is not enough and does not do enough to promote equality for all people. Being an anti-racist is actively supporting anti-racist policy. So in the folder, I have a document filled with lots of outside sources that can be used to further understand racial disparities and understand where we are in the fight for equality. I hope that this video is helpful and is useful in assisting you guys in your conversations about race. If you guys have not read the book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, I would really recommend doing so, or just listening to Ibrahim Kendi speak. He has lots of videos and interviews, and he is really smart and interesting. If you have any further questions or need any more advice, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you again for listening, and good luck with your conversations.